having said that, they can now cut funding to key agencies in whichever way they see fit, and then they will have to enforce austerity and layoffs. This creates slush funds for Trump administration. That's it.
You're going to be under arrest.
Yeah, the final Democratic Party turncoat. 10 Senate Democrats are voting to advance the House GOP 6-month funding bill. It has the votes to go through. Cortez Masto, Dick Durbin, John Fetterman, Kirsten Gillibrand, Maggie Hasan, King, Peters, Schatz, Schumer, Shaheen. 10. These guys are going to turn around and vote no, most of them, with the exception of John Fetterman. They're going to vote no on the bill, on the passage of the bill, and act like they actually stood against it the entire time. But voting for cloture in this way is to vote for the bill. Make no mistake. It's a cowardly way to do so, but it is precisely what this is. When are you going to speak out about Nancy Pelosi? What? Nancy Pelosi? I knew it. HasanAbi is a hidden Republican? What? Sorry to ask, but what are the implications of this bill passing? I want to give a summary to my centrist dad. It removes funding from key federal agencies. It gives Trump extra power to command existing federal agencies, and it gives Trump the power to command federal agencies further and direct their funding for future initiatives, whether it be to cut funding or to change like what kind of programs that they're focusing on, things of that nature. It basically is a legal defense of a lot of the Doge actions. Yeah, it takes $1 billion away from DC's budget because DC is not a state; it's a district. So there's that too. It's just like a petty, vindictive agenda. But also here, what we know about the House GOP government funding bill. The bill will fully fund corporations without increasing spending, according to the GOP-led House Appropriations Committee. With no poison pills or unrelated riders, the bill is simple. Extend funding and certainty for the nation, Committee Chairman Tom Cole of Oklahoma said in a statement, which is a lie. However, the measure contains some Trump administration requests, including an additional $485 million for immigration and customs enforcement to help boost deportations. The $13 billion decrease in non-defense spending, which Republicans are touting as a $13 billion in savings, would stem from the removal of projects or one-time initiatives funded by lawmakers known as earmarks in fiscal year 2024. According to a House Appropriations Committee spokesperson, the measure would not affect the money directed to those projects in the last fiscal year, but it would not repeat the funding for those same projects. No earmarks are included in the continuing resolution, the spokesperson said. The legislation would also fully fund veterans' health care and services and benefits while enhancing investments in defense, the committee touted in a press release. It noted that the bill includes the largest pay raise for junior enlisted troops in more than 40 years. This is all the Republican push, the Republican sell for what is in the bill. Okay? Democrats are taking issue with the GOP's move to fund the government through the end of the fiscal year with a continuing resolution, arguing that the package does not provide the specific funding directives for many programs and priorities that would be laid out in a negotiated full-year spending bill. This creates slush funds for the Trump administration to reshape spending priorities, eliminate longstanding programs, pick winners and losers, and more. That's what the fact sheet that Senator Patty Murray put forward. She is the ranking Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee. I'm going to actually, does anyone have the link to her fact sheet? I'm going to pull that up right now. Hold on. Where is it? Here. Trump and Elon's layoffs jeopardize essential services Americans rely on, threaten critical agency objectives, keeping Americans safe and healthy. I don't think this is the one, is it? This is just about the mass firings. This is about mass layoffs and how it will impact the federal government. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the fact sheet on the current, the spending bill and where Republicans are cutting from. The lack of these directives would make it harder to challenge the Trump administration's actions in court, Murray and Representative Rosa DeLauro, ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee, said in separate fact sheets. The lawmakers highlighted a variety of spending cuts contained in the continuing resolution, including slicing $185 million for defense, nuclear, and non-proliferation programs and slashing $1.4 oh yeah, this is the other side of it. Hold on. Where the frick? Okay. $1.4 billion from the Army Corps of Engineers construction funding used for projects to mitigate the impacts of hurricanes and floods. Plus, the legislation would reduce support for the Rural Broadband Community Connect program by $30 million, cut nearly $800 million from Veterans Affairs facility construction, eliminate up to $40 million in election security grant funding, and trim assistance to farmers to improve their lands and participate in conservation activities by $30 million, according to the Democratic appropriations leaders. Also, the package would not provide additional funds for the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Disaster Relief Fund, which would need more money before the end of the fiscal year. But considering that they want to undermine FEMA anyway, this works in their favor, the Republicans' favor. Okay, that's not the right one. I think this is the right one. Okay. Full year continuing resolution would hand vast discretion over spending decisions to President Trump and his administration to zero out programs and redirect funding as they see fit. Okay? Normally, Congress typically provides scores of specific funding directives for key programs and priorities. This would basically consolidate power in the hands of Donald Trump and Elon Musk as well, if they choose to do so. There will be no, this undermines the power of the purse that Congress is supposed to have. All the congressional directives go away, and it's done entirely in the hands, or given, it legitimizes Doge. It basically makes it legal, right? It undermines all the court cases against Doge layoffs and Doge cuts. Doge is already a legitimate agency, but it's currently doing a bunch of stuff that it's not supposed to. There's numerous legal avenues that many people have taken in an effort to stop some of these layoffs. You can't unjustly lay off, tens of thousands of employees from federal governments, from the federal government by saying, like, you're not doing, your performance is subpar out of nowhere, right? Like, you can't do that. Having said that, they can now cut funding to key agencies in whichever way they see fit, and then they will have to enforce austerity and layoffs. This creates slush funds for Trump administrative spending priorities, eliminate longstanding programs, pick winners and losers, and more. Failing to provide specific funding directives from Congress means the Trump administration has fewer legal constraints in what it can do. That's what I meant. So, the House Republicans could have addressed this glaring problem, but chose not to. Their year-long CR includes plenty of unnecessary anomalies, but doesn't address this fundamental issue because they prefer slush funds for this administration to cut the programs it wants to in order to fund Trump's priorities instead. Myriad members' priorities are at risk of significant reductions in funding or elimination under the full-year CR. Under the CR, the Trump administration could, for example, decide not to spend funding previously allocated for combating fentanyl, the Support Act, or other substance abuse and mental health programs, or specific NIH priorities like Alzheimer's disease and vaccine research. We've already seen this administration obviously behave in this manner. We've already seen this administration decide not to continue with NIH funding for one reason or another. The latest round of NIH funding cuts and grant cuts came against the Columbia University because they said that they weren't combating anti-Semitism sufficiently. Okay. Instead of steer funding to other priorities of his choosing, he could also pick and choose which military construction, Army Corps, or transit improvement and expansion projects to fund without direction from Congress, leaving Democratic states and priorities in the lurch. This is particularly risky for Democratic cities and states that may have to beg for their priorities to be funded from an administration that has already cut out vast swaths of funding and threatened retaliation. It's like giving a drunk person the keys to the car. Yes. After the drunk person has already crashed the car before and says he's going to do it again. The slush fund, CR, also reneges on funding levels agreed to as part of the Fiscal Responsibility Act agreement, shortchanging defense and non-defense priorities alike. This will not be like the last time full CRs for some funding bills were in effect after a bipartisan process. President Trump has endorsed this full year CR because he understands what it's in for him. More power over federal spending to pick winners and losers and devastate Democratic states and priorities. The appropriations committees have been extremely close on a top-line agreement, and Democrats remain ready to get subcommittees to work to finalize and pass full-year funding bills. The Republicans have said they don't care, that they're not going to do it. And the Democrats basically, instead of pushing for a normal bipartisan spending bill to go through because it is necessary, have caved and decided that they can pass this with a simple majority with the with the Republican votes necessary in the Senate. That's the beautiful thing that Chuck Schumer delivered to the Republican Party today. K through 12 education, higher education, grants the administration broad discretion such that it could eliminate or significantly cut funding for federal work study and supplemental educational opportunity programs that provide funding to thousands of institutions of higher education to award need-based financial aid to students. They could significantly cut or eliminate funding for programs supporting HBCUs, other minority-serving institutions, and tribal colleges. Is this 6 months or a full year? No, this pushes it back to September. As of today, the government can fund itself until September. From this point on, until September 30th, the Republicans have been able to successfully get this without a single battle, without any pushback whatsoever. This is the lightest version of events, by the way, being told by a, relatively centrist Democrat, like a somewhat centrist Washington Democrat. It's not like this person is aggressive. The bill also limits the District of Columbia spending to its fiscal year 2024 level for the rest of the year, obviously. So there's that aspect of it as well. So it basically slashes $1.1 billion of its approved budget from Washington, D.C., which Trump obviously hates. Separately, the package would extend community health centers funding the pandemic-era authorization, expanding in the use of telehealth and Medicare through September 30th. The legislation also would reduce some funding for the Department of Health and Human Services divisions that run community health centers and other programs that help people with mental health and substance abuse issues, said Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of the Federal Budget Policy at the left-leaning Center for American Progress. Also, money could be cut from children and family service programs as well as for aging and disability services programs. And here we are.
Pass the funding measure that the House passed earlier this week, despite growing pressure from the rest of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party's base to block that bill. I'm back with my panel. Let's go back. We'll talk more about the government funding bill later in the show, but I have a legal panel here, so let's stick with this. Sochi, I want you to take a listen to this from President Trump.
We must be honest about the lies and abuses that have occurred within these walls. Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals within the ranks of the American government obliterated the trust and goodwill built up over generations. They weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies to try and thwart the will of the American people.
Now, you don't have to be, I know you disagree, you're shaking your head, you're going to get the mic in the sack. You don't have to be a member of MAGA to say, you know what? Those Peter Strzok, Lisa Page texts were awful. There was FISA abuse. There was that weird thing with Carter Page. I don't know about that Alvin Bragg case where he basically invented a felony. You don't have to be a member of MAGA to look and say, you know what? He does have some legitimate grievances.
Oh.
Here is what I...
Oh. Ugh. Dude, throat it. My throat goat, Jake Tapper. More like Jake Yapper. Holy fuck, am I watching Fox News right now? What the hell?
What I'll say even further, there is a jury in both Florida and DC that believe that there is enough evidence for Donald Trump to be indicted.
I mean a grand jury.
A grand jury on 44 counts. And this isn't just some conspiracy theory. There was no weaponization. Donald Trump, the federal government believes that Donald Trump committed crimes. And Jack Smith said in his report that if he...
Dude, I don't know what else to say, man. I don't. Bro, we're so cooked. We're so cooked. It's just like we're full-blown uniparty, man. What the hell? This is why I said I don't think they're going to come after. I don't think they're going to come after mainstream media. Like, why would they? Look at this.
I was talking about the Russiagate investigation and the Alvin Bragg case, and you deftly switched it to the Jack Smith investigations.
I was not involved in the Alvin Bragg or the Russia
but I'm just saying, just for people at home, I was taking issue with some other ones, but go ahead.
Look, I was at DOJ for 17 years. I was a chief of the organized crime and gang section. I got to see a lot of the major decisions being made under 5 different attorney generals. To sit there and pretend that this was apolitical, that everything was by the book is absurd. 4 days after the Mar-a-Lago raid, her friend, the Attorney General, stood up and did an unprecedented press conference to talk about the subject of the raid. That's not
After
something.
it was unsealed.
That's not something.
After it was
ma'am,
unsealed.
Let me finish. It is unethical for any prosecutor to have a press conference to talk about the fruits of a raid when the person hasn't even been charged, which was the case then. Now, Merrick Garland, that guy, made that decision to go on air thinking, I just need to explain what we're doing.
No, unless it's
and then,
in public.
and then
We're coming right back to
then
it.
he hid behind Jack Smith, but Jack Smith answered to the Attorney General every step of the way. Now, let me just say, grand jury, let's talk about the grand jury where the grand jurors they asked questions of Tim Parlatore 43 times.
You're talking about in Florida?
In D.C. 43 times designed to get him to invoke attorney-client privilege, which he did. He was even telling the prosecutor, this is unethical. You can't keep asking questions knowing I'm going to invoke, and she kept doing that.
Okay, Sochi, and then?
I mean, Merrick Garland is the most apolitical person, Attorney General there, and he has been criticized.
I'm worried about lightning
actually
striking.
by both parties, and he follows the facts and the law. He's a career Justice Department official. I can tell you there was no politicization in that investigation whatsoever. The White House was never updated about it. It was Jack Smith made the decisions, would update the Attorney General. And when it came to every Smith's decision.
Tom, let me just come to you quickly. On the point I made, if I may, invoke anchor privilege, the point I made about somebody in middle America saying, well, I don't know about this Jack Smith stuff, but there's other stuff that's fishy with the Russiagate investigation. I don't know about that Alvin Bragg case. What do you say to them?
Look, I would say to them, I think when Trump says that there was fishy things going on at the Justice Department, I think he has a point. There was.
What's
now,
your proof?
People
of that?
can.
I'm sorry.
People,
what is your
well,
what is your
for
evidence
example,
of that?
you had people
In the
admitting
Jack
to
Smith.
false statements on the FISA warrant. Jack Smith, when you said the case would still be going, it wasn't. It was dismissed. The document
It was dismissed, but it was under
dismissed.
appeal but it was
And the
dismissed.
fact-
It was dismissed on a technicality, which was
And
that Jack Smith was appointed incorrectly, not on the facts.
Let's just let Tom finish here.
That's more than a technicality. But I would say that, look, I think Merrick Garland is going to go down in history as someone who, like Jim Comey, unites Republicans and Democrats in strongly disapproving of his performance. Republicans think he was too political. Democrats wonder why he waited so darn long to bring the charges against Trump.
And he canceled out that noise and did his job.
All right. Thanks, one and all. I don't think we're going to resolve any of this in this show. But thanks, one and all, for being here and for your passionate views. Appreciate it. Fighting inside the Democratic Party in full public view as the party's lawmakers fight over their strategy, if there is one, for taking on Republicans. I'm going to talk to a House Democrat if they have any solutions next. Stay with us.
By the way, Twitch.co briefly talked about your ban on Vox Media Pod. Yeah, we'll look at it later. This is just pure insanity. Hold on. Did you see this? Right-wingers are going crazy in the replies. I'm begging someone to do it. Either one, I don't care. I'm not picky. What are you talking about? I don't understand why you're showing me this. And yes, I already watched the video of Mahmoud's arrest. I did. Oh, they're tagging FBI. They think he means people in power. Yeah, I got it. I understand. I mean, I'm not going to cover every time someone hyperventilates about a person who, you know, is a leftist or progressive or whatever, tweets something out, and then Republicans are losing their minds over it. It's just, it is what it is. Bernie Sanders complained about, you know, Elon Musk and went on all in with Chris Hayes. I don't really care about that much. Let's watch the backlash that the Republicans are receiving at their town halls.
Begin this hour with Americans speaking up very loudly and very clearly at town hall events across the nation. Republicans in Congress are taking the brunt of it over President Trump and Elon Musk, deep cuts to federal jobs and programs, and the uncertainty over the economy. A lot of people worried. A lot of GOP lawmakers have now canceled events amid all kinds of very tough questions from their constituents. Nicole Killian reports on.
Actually, I want to get right to, I want to cut to the meat of it, okay? The meat. No bones, just meat. Because there is definitely something here that I want you to see. We got a veteran who is at a town hall, angry over Doge. Let's watch that. And then I'm going to show you another voice memo that Tom Tillis received.
I'm a veteran and you don't give a fuck about me. Shut the fuck up. You don't get the fucking do this.
I was at this town hall. It was full of conservatives. Yeah, I think that older conservatives are going to get angrier and angrier. That's going to also piss off a lot of Americans as well, conservatives as well. This is what I mean when I say, like, Americans are relatively servile people, but that's because they're relatively comfortable people, okay? And the government making decisions like this in the short term might not be seen by many Americans, but I think, or might not get broad reception from CNN or maybe other outlets or whatever. But I do think that this is going to piss off people. Like, the example I will give you is like Colombia, right? Mahmoud Khalil, Arab name, scary guy. They're saying he's a terrorist. A lot of Americans can turn the other cheek at that. They'll go, oh, it's probably good. He's probably scary. I'm conditioned to feel like this is a bad guy. But this is not going to stop there. Inevitably, the government is going to nab someone who will have a higher media profile. There will be a Luigi Mangione situation. Not Luigi Mangione in the sense that, like, someone will allegedly assassinate a CEO, a healthcare CEO. I mean, like, Luigi Mangione got broad positive reception, not simply because everybody understood why he did what he did, allegedly, but also because his background, the way he looks, the way he carried himself, the way his friends talked about him. These are the types of optics that Americans respond to and will very quickly turn into a folk hero. The unfortunate reality is that Americans broadly don't think about Muslims as humans and think about them as scary terrorists. But this will, the stress will increase. We will, of course, continue applying pressure. But having said that, inevitably that pressure will cause the dam to break. Because when there's more pressure, there's going to be more countermeasures, more prosecutions, more arrests, scarier enforcement tactics, and eventually you're going to arrest someone that is even more of a perfect victim in the eyes of Americans. Not saying that Mahmoud wasn't. Not saying that you even have to be a perfect victim. Right? I hope people understand. And when that happens, or as things continue to worsen, people will absolutely put more teeth in their resistance. Especially if material conditions continue to worsen for the average American. Like, I'll give you an example. Republicans are currently discussing inside of their party to no longer have in-person town halls. This was reported by the New York Times. Republican House members told to stop holding in-person town halls. Okay. Let's say you don't do that. People still want to respond to you, though. Okay? Your constituents are going to want to respond to you. So if you don't hold in-person town halls, they'll respond to you in public. You just won't like it because in-person town halls are certainly a more managed way to address the public. Because if you don't do town halls, people are inevitably going to find out where you are. Because you're going to do a fucking, a book tour, or you're going to go to an event where you're fundraising. They're going to be outside of that event. They're going to fuck your day up. You don't want that. They'll go out to your houses. You don't want that. So Hasan, stop right there, Holy. I'm not saying that this is what I want people to do, dumbasses. I'm saying that there needs to be a pressure valve. That is what the town halls are supposed to do. The pressure valve is the town halls. If you don't do it at a town hall, people are going to address their concern wherever you go. This is just a descriptive statement. It's not a prescriptive one. I'm not saying this is what people should do. I'm just telling you that this is most likely what is going to happen. Okay? This is what has happened throughout American history and throughout history in general. Yeah, remember what people did with Kyrsten Sinema as the Democratic Party actively tried to protect her after she played the role of a spoiler. This is the appropriate way to vent and to at least maintain the optics of a democratic process, as though you care about what your constituents have to say, right? If they shut off the appropriate venues, people will find inappropriate venues. That's all I'm stating. Now, we watched this video.
Just to be clear, bullshit, and you're not
Quiet down.
telling the truth. You're not listening to
Let him speak. Let him speak.
For example, folks at the National Weather Service
are fired.
Stop conceding that Luigi is guilty of the crime. Public perception is important. I said allegedly. What are you talking about? Every single time I mentioned it, I said allegedly. Dude, chatters, please lock in, dude. I don't know why chatters have a tendency to focus on dumb shit. Okay. Here. Now that I gave you the potatoes, let me show you the meat. Okay. Here is Senator Tom Tillis, who released an audio of death threats directed at him, his staff, and his family. I disavow this. I disavow. I disavow. I disavow. I'm going to say this over and over again. But when you listen to who is making these threats, you will probably quickly recognize that this is not like a HasanAbi head by any measure. Let's take a look.
Good afternoon, Senator Tillis.
That's how northern warbacks think about you southern white trash. That's what the ones who won the Civil War think about you. Do you understand that inferior bad genes, inbred stupid you and all your people?
Yeah, Tom Tillis. Afraid of death threats. Then get the out of office.
I would like to talk to Tom Tillis and ask him why he thinks it's okay for him to take money from this nation and it over. Why does he think that he can tell his employers to go themselves every goddamn day, all day long, and sell his goddamn nation out and his employers over? Don't he know that his employers can take a axe handle and cave his head in?
God damn. Let me tell you something, okay? I don't think that guy is in the DSA. I don't think that's a HasanAbi head. I think that's probably a voter. That's the average, I would say that's the average Republican voter, as a matter of fact. Okay?
And I suggest, well, you're going to have to be very careful about going out in public or talking to anybody that's real, that's an actual American, because we hate you.
If I didn't have a broken back in Southern California, I would spend the rest of my life in federal prison for a chance to cut your throat.
That's insane. Oh! That is North Carolina's very own Republican Tom Tillis. Those are his constituents. People are fucking mad, dude. I disavow. I disavow. I disavow. Of course, I disavow. Make no mistake, I disavow. All right? Now, having said that, I can disavow till the cows come home. You can't stop 75-year-old boomers from making these death threats. You're fucking cooked. Do you understand? Like, you're cooked. Yeah, these are dudes who are using a landline to make a death threat to a congressperson. I saw a funny reaction to this, which was like someone reacting to Edinger Mentum's post, which was like, yeah, Zoomers, I think it'd be funny if something a little bad happened to this politician. In Minecraft, though, haha, boomers using their full names and address, I am going to kill you. Like, boomers do not fuck around, dude. Now, I'm not saying they're going to actually follow through on these promises, but I'm just simply stating that, like, if you got boomers saying shit like this, yeah, you got to change the trajectory. You know, you got to change course. Dark woke sweeping the nation. I don't think these guys are woke, man. I think they're aware of where the funding cuts are happening and what kind of repercussions that might have on them. So in an opportunity moment like this, in quite the opportune moment like this, how are the Democrats not actively trying to drive a wedge between the constituencies and the party, when the party's actions are deliberately implementing austerity measures that are harmful to their base of support, to the Republican Party's base. How in the ever-loving fuck are you not screaming from the rooftops every single day about how this is going to cause a boomer side? You've voluntarily gave up that position by voting for the cloture. You're volunteering to say, we can't even use this as a political messaging tool against the party that is going to set these deep cuts. I don't believe that every single card-carrying Democratic politician is this oblivious or this awful. And I don't know where we go from here, but I do see anger and resentment.
One gathering in North Carolina that did go ahead, and it got, how shall we say, very heated.
Yeah, Ro Khanna, when the Senate minority leader sells you out, the only option is to take back the party and country with grassroots activists in blue and red districts to stand up for the Constitution and our democracy. It's interesting to see Ro Khanna say this while he's, in between tweeting about how Elon Musk is a great American entrepreneur who should be defended at all costs. That's the Ro Khanna cycle, baby. For every 3 things that he does that you're like, what are you doing with the limited amount of time and space that you have to speak about issues? How did you choose to do this? And then the next day he'll be like, the American revolutionary sentiment is ripe. Rise up, proletarians. He's like, America is ripe for revolution. We must seize the means of production away from the parasitic capital owners and deliver it back to the working class now. Also, I love Elon Musk. Yeah, Dick Durbin also, who is the whip for Chucky Schumer, also voted for the cloture. Just so you know, just so you understand, it's a ridiculous fucking state of affairs when you got the minority leader and his second in command both voting for the cloture.
At Thursday's town hall in Asheville, the lines began early, snaking outside the building with some who oppose President Trump.
America has never been like this. We've had disputes, we've had protests, but I've never seen it this angry before.
And others who support him.
The government has to cut because it is in trouble. And Elon Musk is not voted in, I get it, but neither was Anthony Fauci.
As the event got underway, frustrations towards the administration bubbled over. Attendees sounded off.
Why is a non-elected person running our government?
And shouted down GOP Congressman Chuck Edwards, who represents Asheville, a blue city in an otherwise red district.
You're lying! I'm a veteran! You don't give a about me!
At least one man was hauled out by police.
You don't get to take away our rights! You don't get to take our health care! Get off of it! You don't get to do it!
Yeah, Trump's base already kept trying to kill him during the election because they were bored. Imagine what they would do when they're pissed at him and Musk is a really funny question to ask. They literally did do that, by the way. That was the first, hey, Anthony Fantano, the needle dropped. Thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. We are, instead of watching Playboi Carti, instead of reacting to Playboi Carti's new album, we are reacting to the collapse of the administrative state and the collapse of American empire. But, of course, the collapse of American empire will not happen quietly. It will happen with disaster after disaster. Oh. Could you clarify if the anti-Semitic terrorism policies are a component of the spending bill? No. The anti-Semitic terrorism policies, the new policies that the DOJ said it intends to use are completely, it's just a totally separate thing. It's completely removed from the spending bill. There's not a part of that at all. Pete the Artist, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. I will be reacting to the new Carti album later.
It follows a series of similar town halls nationwide, where members of Congress have faced off with angry constituents. Edwards received a steady stream of questions about Elon Musk, tariffs, the Ukraine-Russia war, and massive cuts to the federal government, from the VA to the Department of Education.
Are people losing their jobs at record
Many in the room are still recovering from Hurricane Helene.
We don't need to hear you tell us what we lived through.
Crowds surrounded Edwards as he left.
Bro, you can't but trans people your way out of this, by the way. That's the other side of it. Like, when you impact people materially in a tangible way that they can immediately recognize, if you impact people and their lives in a meaningful way, okay, and they can feel that impact, you can't just cast a dispersion cloud or whatever. You can't just throw a smoke grenade and just escape by saying, but what about trans people? DEI. You can't do that. They're going to be like, I don't give a fuck, okay? I don't care who's processing my paperwork as long as I still got health care, as long as I still got Social Security. That's it. These guys think that they could just deploy the trans grenade over and over again to be like, but we're doing these cuts because they're going to trans people, when you got a 78-year-old veteran being like, I ain't trans. You're stealing my money, damn it. I'm the least trans. How dare you? When their fragile lives are legitimately threatened, I mean, I don't think they will, I don't think they'll awaken to the contradictions and instantly develop class consciousness, especially because a lot of the boomers themselves have some kind of nest egg. So they do have a capacity for capital accumulation, right? So they are not aligned with younger workers that are just entering the marketplace at all. They have homes and shit, right? Their material conditions are very different. The average age of the home buyer a new home buyer in this country is 50 years old, okay? 50. A lot of people who have homes are very old. That's important. That means they have assets. That means they have capital. They have a means of capital accumulation. So for their material conditions to worsen, you have to really, really, you have to really do some messed up shit. Even then, I don't believe that they will rise up with revolutionary fervor. Don't misunderstand me. But this anger can be channeled into more appropriate vectors. Because this anger is justifiable. This anger is understandable. Why wouldn't you be angry? Those people are more honest and more aware of who's hurting them than the damn near entirety of the Democratic Party's leadership that refuses to basically say, this is austerity. This is happening. Trump is doing this to you. They're recognizing it on their own. They're recognizing it on their own without the Democratic Party steering them in this direction. What exactly are they angry about? They're angry about layoffs. They're angry about the federal government layoffs. Some of them are federal government agency workers, or some of them are related to federal government workers. Some of them are angry at the fact that Social Security and Medicaid spending is slated to be cut. That's understandable that they would be upset at that. Some of them are veterans and VAs getting cut. Veterans are getting fired. I saw a stat that it was this administration has fired more veterans than any administration prior, something insane like that.
But the GOP lawmaker has vowed to keep holding in-person town hall.
Folks certainly have the right to protest and share their concerns. That's part of the process with democracy.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Nicole Killian in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yep.
To President Trump and Elon Musk's drive to slash the federal workforce. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, has the latest on that story in the anger over the cuts. Good morning, Rachel.
Michael, good morning to you. And these sweeping cuts by the Trump administration and mass firings not only prompting legal pushback in the courts, but also from voters across the country, too, who are now confronting their Republican representatives at town halls.
Is this good? Is this good? I can't tell. Are we winning yet, guys? Are we winning so much that we will say, Mr. President, please let us not win any longer. We have won far too much. We are winning more than we have ever won. It feels like it don't feel too good. I don't know. It doesn't feel like we're winning a lot.
Overnight, a heated town hall in Asheville, North Carolina.
I feel like this is not productive with everybody yelling at me. I mean, if you want to hear, yeah.
Republican Congressman Chuck Edwards confronted by constituents about the sweeping cuts across the government by President Trump and Elon Musk.
How do you justify
It's not as bad as you're making it. Were these 2 months hard? Sure, but only 46 more to go. Amazing. I can't wait. The past 2 months were awful. Every day there was a new controversy. Every day there was a new chaotic circumstance that caused the market to plunge. And fantastic that we have, like, think about it. Think about the stuff that's happened in the past 2 months, okay? And we have 46 more to go. Amazing. That's definitely going to be great. I can't wait, especially because, like, in like around 12 months, you're going to start seeing the impact. This is happening in the interim. This is like the immediate impact. That is the lightest version, okay? This is the lowest amount of impact that you will ever experience. Every single day, it will get worse. It will snowball, which is why I think people are going to get much angrier.
Cuts to staff of the VA helping veterans, especially those with long-term care needs.
So first of all, there have been no cuts to the staff as of this.
Edwards repeatedly booed.
Yeah, wait, also, we're not even factoring in, like, commonplace issues that are that didn't used to be so common, like anthropogenic climate change related unimaginable climate disaster, like catastrophic events that used to happen like once every decade or once every 100 years are now happening multiple times a year. Pair that up with underfunding FEMA, gutting FEMA, underfunding the National Weather Service and NOAA, measles outbreaks and things of that nature. Are you kidding me, dude? It is going to be insanity. We're going to be out with our dicks out in the wind, pissing directly against the wind.
As he took questions for 90 minutes.
Like him or not, Elon Musk has brought a lot of really smart people to Doge.
One interaction turning so contentious, this man had to be escorted out.
You don't get to do this, boy!
The Trump administration is pushing forward with those cuts. Workers have already been fired across the federal workforce. In the middle of tax season, sources say the IRS is now expected to cut 18,000 jobs by May 15th. And the U.S. Postal Service announcing it will trim its workforce by 10,000 with voluntary buyouts after striking an agreement with the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk this week splitting with the White House, suggesting entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security could be next.
The wage support in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate.
Those words leaving some voters concerned.
What are you doing to ensure the protection of our Social Security benefits?
Yeah. Good question. I'm not going to vote to dissolve your Social Security. I'm not looking to disrupt Social Security at all.
And overnight, a federal judge ordering 18 agencies to hire back 20,000 federal workers the administration fired. The judge saying the mass firings didn't follow certain rules or give advance notice, causing the impacted states irreparable harm by having to assist thousands of unemployed workers. And when it comes to the administration's argument that federal employees were fired for poor performance, the judge writes, this isn't true. There were no individualized assessments of employees. They were all just fired collectively.
So hours earlier, a different federal judge issued a very similar ruling. The White House responding to that, calling it absurd, saying they will be fighting back, George.
Rachel, looks like no government shutdown?
Yeah, it's always down to the wire, George, but it does look like Congress will avert this. Senate Democrats reversing course. They were trying to block a Republican proposal in protest of President Trump, Elon Musk, and those sweeping cuts. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says he will now vote to keep the government open, insisting that while these policies are bad, a government shutdown is worse, he says. George.
Okay, Rich.
I can't tell. It seems like they're celebrating him, right? Is that what is going on? Yeah, they're saying, Burns, you're gonna be winning so much that you're gonna say, Mr. President, please, sir, we're winning too much. We're winning too much, Mr. President. That's what they're gonna say. You're gonna say, never again, Mr. President. It's because they're booing because they're tired of the victories. I think that's what it is. They're tired of too much winning. That's why they're booing him. That's what Trump meant when he said, we're gonna win so much. You're gonna say, please, we're winning too much, sir. This is the we're winning too much, sir moment. That's what it is. That's why they're booing him. They're like, please, sir. We're tired. We're tired of constantly pumping our fists in celebration of all the wonderful things that you've done so far. Please make the winning stop. And it's funny because, like, while all of this anger and animosity is being directed at some of the, like, public-facing figures of this administration, Republicans can't contend with that hatred and resentment that they're experiencing. So they keep talking about how, you know, the left is getting radical. The left is getting violent. The left is lighting Teslas on fire. When will it stop? When will it stop? That's what they keep saying. Great. I'm glad that Trump is, you know, instead of addressing the anger and resentment that he's receiving, the backlash that he's receiving in the form of feedback from a very angry public, he has chosen the other path, which is to try and prosecute it. The Israel method. That's cool. The Israel method, which is the Israel method in America, which is, oh, is there too much backlash? Well, get the federal government to engage in censorious actions. That'll surely put an end to it.